Hello and welcome everyone to our webinar on human augmentation. We will be discussing why human augmentation is essential or is becoming essential in today's world. How can it take us beyond the current paradigm of automation? And what should we do? My name is Tanashare and I'm joined with Mohammad Tanzir in presenting this webinar. Please feel free to drop your comments and question in the comments section. We will be getting back to you with answers after this webinar or during this webinar. And yeah, let's get into it. So just before we dive deeper, what we will be covering is essentially why human in the loop augmentation is critical. Essentially, this covers, first of all, how the world is changing and how Shopfloor requirements are changing. And secondly, we will be talking about, what are the activities, what are the technologies where human augmentation can help. And lastly, very briefly, we will also touch upon what could be the ways forward for the organizations who are doing different kind of manufacturing operations or any kind of shop floor, right? So to begin with, why human in the loop augmentation, right? So as you can imagine, we talk about a lot of automation. There are different kind of robots and technologies are coming in that essentially might one day completely take over our jobs. But I think and we think that that time is not yet. We really think that there is quite a lot of time before that kind of complete transformation can take place, at least in more, let's say, complex environment, more complex shop floors, right? And if we have to look deeper, we really need to ask, why is that? Why are we really talking about augmentation and not automation? And what we have observed across multiple engagements, across multiple scenarios is there is still this need of, dexterity, this variability of skill, and the systems are completely unconnected. And as of now, only humans can navigate these complexities. But at the same time, there are a lot of things that are increasingly creating challenges for humans. I'll in fact start with, first of all, there is a very major gap in the availability of skilled labor, which is of course driven by aging workforce, or in general the number of people that are available or are interested in such kind of jobs. We can look at the figures. 74% of manufacturing companies around the world report labor shortages. Or if we have to take maybe one specific example, so let's look at US. Around 2 million jobs are projected to remain vacant around these areas, right? We also have factors like attrition. Gen Z attrition rates have increased past 40%. You can imagine training someone for a year and then suddenly them leaving. And then, that creates gap that is really hard to fill in a very short amount of time. If we look slightly broader, there are, of course, global tensions in terms of trades and so on. And ultimately, it boils down to more, let's say, reshoring and therefore developing more capabilities in specifically those geographies where we have these problems, which is, the first two problems that we talked about. And particularly, if you also look at the market even broader, we are seeing the complexity increase much more. So earlier, where there used to be X, let's say, SKUs, now there are 2X of them or 3X of them. And that leads to, more operational challenges. So more changeovers, more failures, more knowledge that is required in people to work across all those, customized products, or more number of SKUs, more number of products. And this is essentially increasing the cognitive load on the individuals. So at one end, we have declining labor flexibility, labor availability, and on the other hand, uh, further compounding that problem, we have increasing complexity in the operation, right? But what does all this mean for the floor? Uh, so we need more skills in the people. So we have less number of people, but those less number of people need to be more skilled. They have to have more knowledge. They need to know how to work with more number of machines or work with more number of products. Uh, if people keep on changing, the operations become inconsistent, and that is again a problem. Slow response to operational issues again is derived from the same, because if you have to depend on one person or less number of persons, then that becomes a problem, and then response become slow. And ultimately, uh, the pressure comes more also from the quality, safety, compliance side, wherein, of course, you need to provide that space, and you can't load these skilled workers more, because now we have more capability or more, let's say, ask or more requirement from the worker to reduce these loads. So all of this is bringing us to a conflict where we want more of something, but we have less of something, and that is skills, knowledge, and then, of course, the capabilities in general, right? Uh, And the answer might be, okay, so let's automate, let's completely automate. But, where we started was uh, we essentially can't do that, because we are still not at that level where you can, just drop people, or rather drop people replacement with some sort of machine, some sort of robot. So we are of course not there yet, right? And we are talking about factory floor and complex environments, and that might be quite well evident that even in simpler places, so data and desk jobs, or coding jobs, whatever we have seen in recent months, that wherever people had thought that technology and automation is fully capable, that they have to kind of take a step back, right? If that is case there, for sure, in complex environments of a shop floor, it won't be possible, right? So yeah, humans are still central to operations. It's very complex environment. Uh, Tribal knowledge is becoming a major risk, so we need to kind of fulfill that gap, and then, of course, all the investments that has been made in recent years in sensorizing equipment, in connecting the equipments to, let's say, single MES or ERP systems, all of that investment will go to waste if the skill to operate all these systems is still not there, right? So uh, which is why we come to this kind of conclusion where we say, okay, human augmentation is essential, right? Going further, what we want to see is how this will, or how this can be enabled. But I'll ask my colleague Tanzir to talk about this, and maybe Tanzir, you can help us understand how the world is changing, what we might expect in future, and yeah, what is your view on what will happen with respect to technology?
Thank you, Tanay. As first part is answered, why now? The second part answers like why human augmentation and how human augmentation can redefine the front line. So when we look into the front line itself, so recently in the past week, what has happened is Ford has just rehired 350 gray old engineers to their factory. So why they have hired these engineers again into their factory floors, where they have actually automated their complete quality systems in the automation area, and but somehow the AI results weren't that good. So which boil down into like, okay, human in loop is very essential, and which actually makes, okay, so these things has to be in a phase that human plus technology will bridge the gap of the current shop floor equation, which is like currently like we are going to talk about also. So when we boil down these problems, so human augmentation in general, by human augmentation as a term, what we are referring is we are expanding the capabilities of humans. The current capabilities of humans are not up to the mark the manufacturing flows currently require. So wherein we discuss about physical augmentation, which actually extends what we can do, which is the mechanical part of things, which is like strength support with exoskeletons and working along with cobot. Think about a scenario where we are lifting a, a heavyweight thing with a exoskeleton, active exoskeleton. So that is where, okay, we are augmenting the power of the mechanical strength of this specific thing, and having a productive environment over there. So robotics is one major enabling technology which is actually enabling this. And when we look into the cognitive augmentation part, this majorly covers the technologies of what we can know more and decide fast. So basically, when we look into this task guidance or knowledge capture or training or skill building, so this requires technologies which are like digital work instruction, AR, VR based training, and all this video SOPs, which enable an interactive guidance to the human operator. The sensory augmentation is one another factor which actually extends our perceiving power. So we are like humans are constrained not to see the complete what is happening within a motor. Okay, if there is some issue is happening within the motor, the operators are not able to understand what is actually happened, but the technology is there. So if the technology is there and the technology understand it and it is not translated to human, there is a gap. So that gap is being filled with these technologies. In this webinar, like here, in the discussion we will be discussing little more deeper into cognitive augmentation, and we will be having some more sessions over this physical and sensory augmentation in our upcoming discussions. And yeah, as we see, like, okay, recently like we had worked with one of our packaging partner, one of the packaging OEM was our, so they were asking about, so they're having a set of global operations and they wanted to standardize their operations, and they wanted to integrate this work instruction within their machines. So this problems are coming as a real okay, companies are talking about this. Operational intelligence is coming as a major scenario. So these digital work instruction, which is part of cognitive augmentation, are interactive real-time operator guidance system that replace the static SOPs and paper manuals. Earlier, what happens in shop floor is people used to carry a lot of paper loads and paper files, and they have to actually go through it manually and see. But the technology, we are at an age where the technology is there, where like AI is there, AR technologies are maturing. So these things have actually advanced in a level that, okay, human capability can also be 3x or 4x in this level. So that is what is happening. So when we look into the complete picture of digital work instruction, the space is actually getting good traction, and which the functionalities like step-by-step guidance, multimedia SOPs. The SOPs are now interactive. It can be in video, it can be some step-by-step guidance, like any media, like it can be an audio reference which is being translated into a headset. So these are the kind of things happening over the world, and actually the frontline operator will now be an intelligent operator. That is what is coming in the picture. So the as the technology, and the next part is this AI co-pilots for operators. LLMs are commoditized, but with this just commoditized LLMs, it is restricted with this lack of domain expertise or domain knowledge. That's where these kind of specific domain specific this co-pilots are essential, which actually helps in context aware troubleshooting, AI assistant, quality validation, conversational assistance, and so forth. So, Tanay, if you have some additional points to add here, or shall we
Yeah, no,
continue?
I'm just thinking about these activities and just thinking about scenarios where for example, even in the previous case, it's how interesting it would be for referring back to the challenges that we talked about, that we don't have an experienced person, but thinking about a scenario in the previous slide where all the age-old knowledge has come in one place. And if you can go to the previous slide once, so we have multimedia SOPs, and I can see the images on the left-hand side. And yeah, I can imagine people seeing what needs to be done almost mechanically. I can see this being used also for training. I can see, so the problem that we were talking about, this, of course, is already happening in bits and pieces, but uh, the case study that you're referring to, it's really more about how do we build this solution with some of these partners, or who can be the best, whose solutions aligns with our kind of operations. So just understanding that and really developing it for your use cases, I think the way forward for most of the organization, because what is happening today is, of course, most of the cases, let's say these startups, they have, let's say they are a small team. There are 10 people who are starting this organization, and a couple of people are coming from the industry or one industry in particular, and they are kind of developing this solution, and they have a vision. But what might happen is their vision is essentially not aligned with their industry that they were thinking, but it may be used somewhere else. It just needs some more tweaks. And it's about bringing that partnership together to really have some domain capabilities around these technologies of integrating AR, VR, LLMs, and so on, uh, and to essentially, yeah, build this together for the future. And I would say that we are still not in a place. It's not like SAP, which has so many modules that you can essentially build in. And even in SAP, you might have to do a lot of customizations, right? I would say, we are just in that stage where we need to do a bit more of customization and a bit more of collaboration to build these solutions for specific use cases. But yeah, I mean, Tanzir, please carry on. It was
Yeah,
very interesting.
yeah, as you rightly pointed out, like the tacit knowledge. So we were also discussing about this Ford scenario where tacit knowledge was the major element which were missing when they were automating this quality systems, automated quality system. And so actually what happened is this has increased their recall, and they had to actually rehire the people.
I was
Now,
not aware of that development. Otherwise, I would have cited that as the first thing instead
r-
of coding recalls and bringing, all the coders back.
yeah.
But yeah, interesting development, and it just really goes to show how critical or how difficult these operations can be, and how fragile the technology is if we go for complete automation.
Right, right. So yeah, so as we have seen, so we have seen the interesting technologies. Now, is it a real market? So that is one thing which we have to look into. So the market is actually shifting from digital, when we look into digital work instruction as a scenario or a field, it is shifting to a frontline operating system as a platform. and there is a lot of capital flowing. If you see, Tulip is one of the company which is in the connected worker ecosystem market. They have actually raised close to 120 million, and it's close to have a 1 billion valuation and all those sort. And some of the companies are again some specific companies. If you see here is like Deep How, which has recently raised about 14 million. And in the other side, what we are also seeing is the consolidation of the market is also happening. People are actually like the MES or enterprise software companies who were actually supplying these softwares to the legacy companies are actually acquiring the small startups and adding that capability to their solution portfolio. So that is one trend which we are actually observing, and the space is evolving very faster actually. Like the technologies like with AI and all the other buzzword technologies around here. So the technology is like emerging like crazy in this scenario, and we will be like seeing more disruption within this market. That is what I'm expecting. Tanai, over to you to.
No, what maybe what I guess in that story, what we were maybe missing and can further be explored is what are major, let's say, equipment makers doing, or major ERP companies doing. So yeah, that in fact aligns with what we are seeing, that we need more process knowledge to be integrated with more technology knowledge, and that's what I think we are seeing in those partnerships that are being developing. And I'm very sure that there's quite a lot of activities happening under the, let's say, under that tip of the iceberg, as they say, right?
Right,
But
right,
yeah, I
yeah.
mean, I think we have touched upon what is the way ahead. For sure, the technologies will keep on improving. We have already seen all these technologies that where we had invested. So for many years, digitalization and asset monitoring, asset management has been the buzzword that has happened. But now all the knowledge and all the thing that can reduce the cognitive workload for an operator, those will come in. So we went to the, let's say, the digitalization phase, which is, let's say, in the commercialized space. We are slightly in the mature phase where people were integrating MES to ERPs upwards and to the individual machine and control system downwards, which is, let's say, on the first ribbon or first block. We have seen almost every company launch some sort of co-pilot. Every major company, let me put it that way, knowledge intelligence, tribal knowledge capture, and they're doing these efforts. So of course we're not saying new things here, so this is already in growth phase, but over time, again, all those things will come close to each other. So they're still either just for training, or they are still just for digitalizing the SOPs, just to provide AR/VR guidance. But as things integrate more, then we will have more, let's say, context-aware Copilot. So not just Copilot which provides or extracts from a static knowledge base, but something that also looks at the machine right then and all the data points that are being generated right then, and then provides you answer, or provides you the right answers rather, right? Or
Correct.
agents that are continuously able to operate things. So again, we are somewhere in between early stage where we are really, you know, we are really at that point what we are talking about, that augmentation is essential before we go to a bit more towards full automation and so on. But we are really at that stage where physical, let's say, enhancement like active exoskeletons, or what you called as cognitive enhancement as context-aware co-pilots, autonomous recommendation, all of those will come in. And of course, in future, then we'll have self-learning systems and so on. So I would put those things still 5 to 10 years down the line, when we have to really think about them. But for now, we really think it's not about pure automation. There is quite a lot of work to be done on humans, and that is largely because the frontier grows in a jagged manner, right? And the bottlenecks arrive because you have a weak link. We believe strongly that at this point in time, the frontier, or the jagged frontier at the machine side, has significantly improved. So we have quite a lot of autonomous machine control systems. But when it comes to the decision making, human is the weak link in the productivity. And innovation frontier will always be jagged, but what we need to ensure is that roughness to be minimized. And at this point in time, we would definitely focus more on improving or bringing the capabilities of humans. At least today we are talking about the cognitive side of things, uh, to reduce some of the workload, and to provide that ease of decision making to workers, to achieve that level of performance, to remove all those bottlenecks that you were discussing earlier. Yeah, uh, what we see people ask are around, again, these kind of topics that keep on happening. But yeah, I see we have ran over time quite a lot, but uh, everyone, thank you for I think putting all your questions and comments. We will definitely get back to you. Uh, and yeah, please, if you want, look at futurebridge.com. There are more information around these topics and more. So yeah, it has been a pleasure, and thank you all for joining.
Bye.